It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and yes, we have made it. It's the 100th episode. And while I'm not going to tell you my life story on this intro, you are going to hear a little bit about how we made it to 100. And then on New Year's Eve, which happens to be my birthday, which also happens to be my anniversary, I'm going to be dropping a podcast with myself as the guest. People have been asking me to do it for quite a long time, and I really haven't wanted to do it. I like it better when little bits of my life come out through the show when they're relevant, because the show is not about me. But right now, this intro is about me, and getting this thing to 100 was a long journey. And it all started with me working at K2 for 16 years. I had done everything I could over at K2. I won Employee of the Year, I had positions in every sport, but the one thing I couldn't do was make enough money to make me happy. So I needed to leave K2 and find a job for more money. And I found one. It seemed like a perfect gig. I was going to make more money, I was still going to travel the world, work with some amazing brands, and everything was in place for my life 2.0 to start and be even better than it was at K2. But this new gig, which took me to Rio before the Olympics and I could have gone back, there were so many great things with it, except for the owner. She was a miserable person who regularly brought people to tears, and I worked remote, so I didn't really have to experience it. She actually loved me, and I didn't have any terrible days at my office. My plan was the old keep your enemies closer, and that seemed to work for me. But there was nothing I could do for the others. Every day was torture. And I experienced it firsthand every time I would visit the home office. So what did I do? I came up with plans to start this podcast on the clock at that old job. Not the right thing to do. I should have been focused on that business, but you do what you need to do. And for me, it was putting the groundwork together to start this podcast. And over 2 years ago, I quit that job. I know it's over 2 years ago, as I was forced to sign an NDA with that position. And the owner told me when I put my 2 weeks in that if I mentioned anything about her company in a negative light, she would sue me. That's not the way I roll. I wasn't planning on saying anything negative about the company. So I've put my 2 weeks in. I've got a guest list scheduled. I've never done a podcast in my entire life. I don't even know how to do a podcast. I'm going to figure it all out. The things I know are my family's not going to starve and my art is going to look amazing, because my wife is an art director and she's going to handle all of my graphics and my website. And being that she's an art director, that means we still have an income, so we don't have to struggle and I don't have to work 2 jobs and do a podcast. Her having a great position allows me to focus on the podcast and build something that hopefully a lot of people will want to listen to. This is the most scary time of our entire lives, as we've never lived on one income and I've never given up everything I've had to follow a dream. As I've been building this, there's been good months and there's been bad months. We had a stretch where we had 2 advertisers and things were a struggle for a little while. Or there's times like now where we had 5 advertisers and things are looking good. And one day soon, if I get around to working on selling my last ad slot, I'll have 6 advertisers, all my ad slots will be filled, and I won't be half as stressed as I am these days. Because if you listen, you know I talk about money a lot. And that's one thing I want coming in. But really, the most important thing about this whole podcast is getting listeners coming in. And for the past 100 weeks, I've been able to see the listens grow on a weekly basis. There are no big ad spends here with the podcast. A lot of this is word of mouth. And I thank you for listening and thank you for telling your friends about the show. And as a special gift, I wanted to deliver an amazing guest for episode 100. Tanner Hall and I started the conversation about doing a podcast back in 2016 with some Facebook messages that were sent but not replied to. I reached out to Tanner's agent and eventually got him on the phone last year when he was over at the High Fives Foundation, and he said he would do a podcast. After our conversation at the High Fives, I reached back out a couple times to Tanner and didn't hear back from him. And really, I figured it was a Seth Morrison situation for me. Seth is one of those guys that I've really wanted to have on the podcast, and based on your feedback, you really want to have on the podcast. Well, I was emailing a bunch with Seth when I first started doing the show, and Seth said he was a listener and he would never be on the show. 35 emails later, Seth is still not going to be on the show, and he is not going to reply to me anymore because I believe I have annoyed him so much. I thought I had gotten into that situation with Tanner Hall, as I had sent him a bunch of messages. I thought I scared him away, but I didn't scare him away. Tanner just needed a reason to be on the show. And when he heard from Oakley and found out that he was not going to be on their program, well, he called me up and said, "Hey, I want to do the podcast today." And that would have been a bad move for Tanner, as he's one of those guys who wears his emotions on his sleeve. And if he were to get on a podcast the day after he was dropped by a major sponsor who had been with him since day one, he would have lost his shit, said a lot of funny things, probably burnt a lot of bridges, and I'm glad he didn't do that. So Tanner went in a holding pattern. He stayed to himself for a week and then reached out to me and said, hey, let's do the podcast now. That cooling pattern was perfect because it put Tanner in the frame of mind to do a podcast, and we talk about the ins and outs of his career and everything Tanner Hall. Before we get into the show, I need to thank my sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, Spy Optic, and Outdoor Research. In their ads, you're going to hear some codes. Please use those codes. Save yourself some loot. Make my sponsors happy. That's what I'm going to ask you to do. Now, let's talk to Tanner Hall.
Yo, bro.
How's it going?
That's good, man. I was just switching over to the speakerphone thing.
We were going to do this a week and a half ago or so, and it just so happened that it correlated with something that happened with you and one of your sponsors. And knowing your persona over the years, I feel like it's probably the best thing that you had like a little waiting period before you and I talked, because sometimes you get emotional really quickly after something happens in your life, from what I've seen.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it was just a little bit out of the blue, and I know it's the nature of the beast and stuff, but it was just being out of the blue. I don't know. I thought I had a relationship maybe that was a little bit more solid, where I could have got a heads up or something, or just like a hint or something. But I mean, like I said, it's the nature of the beast, and 20 years is a good run and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, when something like that happens, your brain can go nuts, because that was a lot of the money that I used to go traveling and, you know, make all this stuff happen with. But we're figuring everything out right now, and life's coming back together, so it's all good.
I guess I didn't think about the financial part, which is weird because I usually always talk about that. But I mean, is that 20%, 30% of your salary just gone in a phone call?
I think it could even be more. Like I said, I didn't even say this to you yet, but I think change in a way. I'm not used to it, but I'm learning now. Like it can be a really big blessing in your life. It just depends on how you look at it, you know. For me, 20 years is a good run, and with my skiing right now and where it's going and how I'm feeling and the confidence is coming back, like maybe it's time to just move on and, you know, try to work with somebody that is still hyped on supporting Grandpa Hall over here.
Change can light a fire under somebody's ass and make them work harder, but that doesn't seem like it's something that you've ever needed to been told. You need to work harder, you need to light a fire under your ass. With 20 years of skiing under your belt and being at the top for 20 years, you're still trying to prove something every year, it seems like.
In my mind, I haven't been at the top for a while, you know what I mean? Through the injuries and stuff. I mean, when I broke my legs and blew out my ACLs, like, shit went pretty haywire, you know what I mean, in the brain. I kind of lost track of, like, even watching skiing. Like, I didn't even know where the progression of skiing was at, because I was just so soaked up in my lost little world that I was in. So, you know, I think when it was waking up, like right around last year during Chad's Gap, like I kind of realized, like, wow, without alcohol and without, you know, a lot of substance going into my body, like a whole lot can happen, because I got a strong mentality and I still have all these things that I want to accomplish and still do on my skis. Because, I mean, look who my inspiration, who I get to hang out with every day, with people like Phil Casavone and Henrik Harlow. It's like, if you ever watch those guys ski, it's not hard to take inspiration from. So yeah, man, it's just been like a whole new, like, reinvention of self and a rebirth feeling. And I think the better foods I eat and the more I take care of my body, I realize, like, I could have longevity in this. And, you know, I'm feeling more and more confident every day. So the change is good right now, man. And I'm feeling confident going into the season for the first time in a long time. It should be really cool doing the Freeride Tour and just moving forward in a positive direction and not letting that shit take me down bad paths, you know?
If you look at it and you take one of the best skiers on the planet and you strip away drugs and alcohol, yeah, you're going to be fucking better. That's just how it is. And you've been able to be at the top of your game for a long time. Like, you've had, I won't even say peaks and valleys. You've had injuries that have taken you away a little bit, but you've always come back stronger. But yeah, you've always had other shit going on in your life. And now that you've taken that shit all away, the skiing in your movie now speaks for itself. And this year is going to be a big year for you. I'm excited for you to be on the Freeride World Tour. But before we get into your childhood, before we get into Freeride World Tour, we talked about Oakley for a second. And the one thing I do want to find out is, how do you even find that out? Because 20 years, you have a great relationship with a brand. And yes, it's a business decision. They have to let you go for whatever reason, which I still can't figure out. You probably can't figure out, but whatever. But how does it happen? Do they call you? Is it Strokes giving you a call saying, hey, man, because it's not his decision. He's getting it from above. Or is it just an email? How do you find that shit out?
Fuck, dude. I mean, I found out from my agent. He hit me up, Tom Yaps, and he pretty much... Strokes had called me that morning, and I was getting out of the shower or whatnot, and I was just going to call him back later on. And then Tom kept hounding me down, and then when I answered the phone, he was just saying basically, like, have you talked to Strokes yet? And I was like, no, what's going on? He was like, well, you could probably think it's not good. And I was like, no, I don't think it's anything. Like, what's going on? And it's just like when he said they're not going to renew my contract, obviously I was fucking pissed, but I called up Strokes and didn't even get to talk to him because I was pretty heated, and I think he wanted me to calm down, and just basically texted with Strokes that day. And I give that dude a bunch of props, because through the 20 years of my career, like 20 years ain't even a fucking sponsor, dude. Like, he's been my team manager since 14 and a half, dude. Like, I know that dude since pre-puberty, for fuck's sake, At this point, he's like my brother, you know what I mean? And it was just insane. Like, I knew he felt really bad, and I knew he fought for me till the end. But at the end of the day, man, when Oakley sold to Luxottica and Jim Gerard didn't have control over it anymore, I mean, a lot of shit is changing, and a lot of shit has changed and is still changing every day. And I know business is business, but I mean, it's kind of a crazy maneuver to pull. In my mind, maybe to other people it's not, but I feel like where my skiing's at and where it's going is just kind of a crazy time to stop the support now. But I mean, I give thanks that they were there through all the injuries and everything, and Oakley has been there since day one for me, so I got to give them thanks. It's a crazy situation, but at the end of the day, man, I'm just happy that it happened and we had a good relationship,
If Pep and Seth can go, you don't know what's going on with a company like that. So I would say the ex-Oakley team of Pep, Seth, and Tanner is a pretty solid team, and it's a different company, and they're all looking at spreadsheets, and unfortunately, performance doesn't really show on spreadsheets because it's all based on sales, but that's them, and that's business. We'll talk about you growing up. Life starts for you in Montana?
Yeah, man, Kalispell.
And you've always repped Montana pretty hard. You still like to go back there and still spend a lot of time there?
Yeah, man, for sure. It's like time's going on. I mean, I just got back from there to here to Park City yesterday, and I was up there for the last 8 days. We had a premiere up there on the 24th in Whitefish, and it went really well. And I was actually looking at some land up there in northern Montana, right near the Canadian border. And yeah, man, as each year goes on, I mean, last year was an amazing year of just exploring and finding some amazing terrain, and just realizing that my backyard is one of the sickest places. 34 years to realize that, but I guess better late than never. So what it basically did is just kind of get the stoke up, because I know for the next 10 years I'm going to be able to explore and find new lines and new pillow lines and spine lines and jump spots that'll keep this going for a long time.
You come from a ski family. Is that how you got into skiing? Just mom and dad ski?
My pops doesn't ski, but my mom does for sure. My mom was all about it. And some of my family members growing up, they skied. I had a couple uncles that skied, and not really coming from a super ski-oriented family, but I mean, up in Kalispell, Montana, I grew up on a mountain called Big Mountain, which is Whitefish Mountain Resort now, but it's always Big Mountain to us. And there's a lot of talent that come from there. I mean, if you look at it, it's like Adam DeLorme, Jason Robinson, Andrew Crawford, even Travis Parker was from around those parts, and Maggie Voisin as well. I mean, there's a lot of people coming out of that little spot up north that just produces a lot of talent. And I think it's that mountain, It's a really foggy mountain. I mean, I think one of the statistics back in the day was it was like the third foggiest mountain in the country. So, we pretty much learn how to ski by feel. And it's a pretty flat mountain in a lot of spots. So you really need to charge and go really fast and get your speed up. So when you hit the flats, you have enough momentum to carry you back all the way to the chairlift. So I think just growing up in that area of Montana, where I think Montana skiing is just pretty gritty and kind of grimy. And I don't know, if you have a passion for it, you're going to get real good real fast up there.
I think that's where the work glove as a glove kind of became famous, is somewhere in Montana. Saying Travis Parker and you are both from there. He's one of the most influential snowboarders of the past 25 years. You're one of the most influential skiers of the past 25 years. And it's all from that same little town, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it was cool growing up and seeing Andrew Crawford all over the place, too. I mean, that guy was a big inspiration for me. And I went to the same church as him. And I just remember seeing him like back in the day. And he was like kind of like the jump off dude for me to like kind of break the unconventional like ski racer or mogul skier and kind of want to start just jumping cliffs and doing backflips and 720s all over the mountain. And yeah, man, I think it was just a cool area to grow up in.
And it was ski racing for you first. Were you put in a program there to race?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it was like the junior development team. You can't really call it racing too much.
Because you were so young?
Yeah, but we would have little ski races, I guess, back in the day. And I mean, I really can't remember it, but my mom was just saying like my interest was zero because I just wanted to hit jumps, I guess, from a really young age. And the whole ski race thing just never really worked out. And once the freestyle program started up there, it was just kind of perfect because I could just kind of have more of a structured style of skiing on how I was skiing the mountain every day.
And how were you as a kid? Because I'm guessing that you excelled at skiing early on and you were pretty good and that gave you a lot of self-confidence. But I also feel like there was probably a punk side to Tanner from maybe 12 on. Were you a punk kid growing up? A smartass?
Well, I mean, maybe not so much super young. I think when I was super young, I just had a lot of energy. And I think people were just looking at me like, holy shit, dude, this kid's bouncing off the walls everywhere.
Yeah.
And then right around 14-ish, 15, I started getting really cocky because I started feeling pretty confident on my skis. And, you know, it was always my dream to do this type of stuff. And once I started realizing like it was feasible, I think I don't know what happened, man. I just kind of lost it. I mean, I moved away from my parents' house at 15 years old to live with a couple young, kind of free-spirited skiers that were more on the party side and kind of grew up really fast. So I feel like, yeah, I kind of developed like a cocky, more of a prick style.
That happens to a lot of kids who are really good at young because all you hear is how great you are and you're young.
Pep says it in Like a Lion, where it's kind of hard to be put in that position when your thoughts are getting drowned out by other people's praises, you know?
I would also say I've met your mom before, probably in like 99, 2000-ish, a long time ago. And she was like your biggest super fan. She, I think, had the Tanner Hall license plate, probably a Tanner Hall t-shirt. I think she probably had a sign. Are your parents together, and is your dad the same way?
Yeah, my parents are still together, but my pops is more laid back in the cut style. He's a working man. He's been selling lumber his whole life. So, I mean, he's a full Montanan. And it's just like, if you're like born and bred in Montana, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to get you out of there.
Yep.
My mom's more of a free-spirited lady, and she likes more of the social scene. And she's a great, awesome lady. I mean, without my mom, I mean, she took me everywhere. And still to this day is my number one supporter, and you know I love her to death, and without her I don't know what I would do. You never really think about that shit when you're younger, but I see my parents getting a little bit older, you know, and it just makes me realize like how important it is to reconnect with Montana and start spending a lot more time up there because, you know, I wasn't around them a lot when I started traveling and going bananas on the skis. Did
your mom ever embarrass you showing up with things of balloons or whatever?
Yeah, for sure, but she's a really special lady. So, I mean, I thought it was kind of funky back in the day, but as the older you get, like, you know, I love that shit, man. And I just realized, like, family over everything. So, yeah, man, my mom's just been kind of wild, like, her whole life, you know.
And you have an older brother? Any other siblings?
No, but Tyson, yeah, it's been awesome with him because, like, right out of college a long time ago, it was kind of perfect timing when Armada was getting going. And Chris O'Connell and Hans were asking me, like, if I knew anybody that would want to work in the office. And I told them my brother just graduated college and he's pretty much more opposite of me. You know, he's like really smart, book smart, and really good at school. And he's really just like a smart human being, very good socially, where I'm more of like on the athletic tip, you know?
Yeah.
So it just kind of worked out. My brother went right out of college and he was like one of the first people hired to Armada, and to still to this day, I mean, without Tyson, I just don't know like if this company would be the same, you know?
It's always weird when the little brother is better than the bigger brother. it always creates a weird vibe, or it could create a weird vibe. It doesn't always do anything. Did you guys ever have that, or there's always a respect between the two of you?
It never was a jealousy thing with that. You know, my brother wasn't really like, he liked to go snowboarding and skiing back in the day, but you could tell it was not, just really wasn't his shit. You know what I mean? So it was like with me and skiing, like I think my brother started getting hype like long time ago, being like, holy shit, dude, like you're throwing backflips and 360s and 720s. Like, what the fuck, dude? Kind of like a stoke vibe for me. To me now, looking back, like that was a huge pusher because my brother and his friends like kind of took me in at a really young age, just like because of like how well I was skiing every day and getting better and better every year. So I was kind of kicking it with the older crew. And I don't know, I give my brother a lot of prop for that because like you said it, I mean, a lot of people can get jealous out of that, but it was kind of sick to see like more of a hype situation for me. So yeah, man, my brother's one of the illest human beings I know. So yeah, it's never really been a jealousy thing whatsoever. If anything, there's a jealousy of me of him because he's got his shit so together. I mean, fuck, dude. He was like the valedictorian of his college class, and he's just been crushing it every day with Armada for over a decade. And, you know, he's married. He's got 2 awesome little kids. And, yeah, man, he's like really on point. So if there's any jealousy, it was probably me towards him.
He would step in your shoes in a heartbeat, I'm sure. And you might step in his shoes as well.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of your brother graduating college and being a valedictorian, school for you is completely different. I mean, you find success at an early age, and I've always been a believer of if you do find this success at an early age, school can wait. You don't even have to come back to it when you're at your level. I don't know if you finished high school or you might have done it recently. I don't know, but it seemed a couple years ago there was something that came up on the internet. You were almost defensive about not finishing high school, where I look at it as like, why are you defensive? You were busy winning X Games medals when I was taking a spelling test. How was school for you? Were you too hyperactive for school and had too much shit going on?
Yeah, for sure, dude. Fuck, school was tough for me. Especially moving to Park City and like going to the winter school out there. I mean, going to school in the summertime when I was like 15 years old, I thought it would be mellow. You go to school for like 7 months in the summer and you get 5 months off in the winter. But dude, those 7 months sucked so bad. And they drug tested me. I was smoking a lot of weed back in the day, and like I failed the drug test, and school just sucked, man. Like it was tough for me because like I remember reading and stuff, and it got to a point like my last year of school, English class, like we were assigned like to read 50 pages like every night. I'm sitting there like, fuck, on top of all this other homework. I'm like, I got to read 50 pages. Like, and my brain couldn't handle it. I was like, that's going to take me like 5 hours. It was just really tough, and it didn't really work out. And like, it was kind of perfect timing though. Cause like right when I failed the second drug test and I got kicked out of school, it was like 4 months later, I had my first X Games gold around my neck. And
then school wants you back, which is crazy. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, I'm going to take a real quick break, talk about my sponsors. My first sponsor is Evo. And if you've been to evo.com, you know that Evo creates the best user experience, has the best brands, offers a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders over $50, and a no-hassle return policy. Well, if you haven't noticed, they're also helping change the world of retail. The store creates events around the sports we're passionate about, they build communities of like-minded people, and they make a difference through giving back. Evo has stores in Denver, Seattle, and Portland, and soon they're opening up stores in Whistler. To find out more about in-store events or to buy the things you're going to need this winter at the best prices, head on over to evo.com. My next sponsor is Rescue Water. When I first started drinking Rescue Water, it was a bottle before bed after big nights and I'd wake up feeling awesome. But Rescue Water has so many more benefits than just after big nights. It's all about being proactive in your recovery. And Rescue Water is proactive recovery for when you get off the mountain, out of the gym, or done your sport. It's a difference that you will feel, and it will hydrate you so much better than your traditional sports drink. Next time you're at the store, grab a Rescue Water, or head on over to rescuewater.com, enter the code RESQ-WATER-TPM, that's all one word, and you'll get 20% off a 12-pack and become a believer. My next sponsor is Outdoor Research. I've been wearing their outerwear since I moved to Seattle in 2000 because it works better than anything else on the market. It's developed and tested in the Northwest, so you know it's gear you can trust. OR is committed to improving your experience with exceptional product, so you don't have to think about your gear while you're out on your journey. But don't just take my word for it. In this year's Powder Magazine Apparel Guide, there was one brand voted Apparel of the Year. It was Outdoor Research. So when you're shopping for outerwear this winter, get the best. Head on over to outdoorresearch.com. New customers, you will get 15% off your order. When you check out, enter the code Powell Movement. That's all caps, all one word, and valid until the end of the year. Those are my sponsors, so we'll get back into your world. And at 15, you're in a ski program in Montana, a freestyle program. You're skiing moguls. You have a dream of becoming an Olympic mogul skier. Johnny Mosley's the most famous skier in the world at that time. You end up going to Utah, and there's a guy in Utah that I think you end up moving down with, Kerry Miller, who's an enigma in the ski world. And when I say enigma, there's a lot of things I won't say because I don't know anything about Kerry Miller other than people I talk to. But he's a 60-year-old dude who imports skiers to live with him, and he develops them into great skiers. And you know what? His track record is Olympic medals, X Games medals. Anybody who works with him does well, but it just seems a little weird to me. There's nicknames that rhyme with his first name, which I won't say, but it's a Halloween day, so you can figure that one out. And what was the whole thing with Kerry Miller, and how did your parents actually let that happen?
It all started when I was like 14. There was like a spring series in the Intermountain Division, which was like pretty much Utah. I was Northern Division, which was Montana, but I wanted to start breaking out and start hitting like some contests with just other kids in other places and just being able to ski other mountains. So I went down to Park City, Deer Valley, and Snowbird, and I was there for like 3 weeks. And I remember Kerry didn't really like say what up to me like the first contest, but by like the last contest in Deer Valley, yeah, he was like, fuck, bro, like you're skiing really well. And, you know, he was doing that weird shit, just like hugging you and rubbing your shoulders and shit and just fuck. I mean, Kerry's weird as fuck, you know, but at the end of the day, dude, like the homie's heart's in the right spot. Fuck, I mean, it's not hard to make assumptions, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the dude's hanging around a bunch of little kids and he looks fucking kind of unconventional. And at the end of the day, he's not really skiing and coaching. But I got to give him props, like I say, man, because he took me in and basically for like 6 straight months, I got to ski snowbird, and I was on the snowbird freestyle team with John O'Brien. And Kerry was taking me up to the mountain, and it was kind of a crazy situation, you know. You got to believe when my mom dropped me off and she was driving back to Montana that first time, like she was fucking bugged out, bro. She didn't know. And me back in the day, I'm deer in the headlights. I'm like, fuck, dude, I just can't wait to go skiing.
Right.
And so I hung out at his house for like 6 months. He helped me out a whole bunch, man. And like I said, his heart's in the right spot. He is just a fucking bit weird. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, there's a bunch of weirdos out in the world. I mean, I hope Kerry is doing good. I haven't spoke with him in a very long time. I've heard some things, you know, and I hope he's doing all right in this life, because back in the day, like without his help, like I don't know if I would have been able to break into the Utah scene like how I did with getting let into the winter school. And once I got into the winter school, my dad and my mom were like, dude, we don't want you living in Salt Lake in this huge fucking tower right downtown in the middle of the city. So I got a host family up in Park City, the Stegemeyers, which was crazy. The dad, Mark Stegemeyer, he was like the 1979 world champion for freestyle skiing.
No way.
Yeah, I was going to school with this other kid, Sean Stegemeyer, and he was his dad. So I was like, fuck, dude, what a sick host family. And that was cool because I stayed there for 1 straight year, and that's when my parents bought the condo. That's when I moved in with Scotty Meyer and Eric Craighead, and that's when just shit started going wild, bro.
So you get out of his place, you get into the condo, and for anyone who grows up in a mountain town, the mountains create the opportunity for smoking weed and drinking and partying at a young age. And when does that all start for you? Because I'm guessing it didn't start when you moved to Utah, probably in Montana.
Yeah, man, it's definitely started in Montana for sure. When I started freestyle skiing, there was a couple older dudes on tour from Bozeman, like Mickey Price and Tony Gilpin and Donovan Powers from Missoula. And I mean, back in the day, those dudes were smoking weed. And like, I was thinking they were like fucking insanely good at skiing and just totally awesome. And I don't know, it was just like very influential. And even before I met them, man, I don't know, my brother was pretty much, I saw him smoking weed way back in the day. And I don't know, weed's just been a thing in my life for kind of a long time. So I've been, right when I got to Utah, I was already on the tip. But I wasn't drinking so much, you know what I mean? I didn't really start drinking, man, until a little bit later on.
At this point, you can send it. You can party and have a good time. And in looking at your career, I feel like you haven't really lost focus too many times. I mean, there might be some here or there, but when you're young and you live in a place where you can party all the time, do whatever you want, is there any loss of focus there, or is it party at night, school and ski all day and repeat?
No, there's no loss of focus when you're that young, bro. At 15, I knew what I was going to do. And I realized I could ingest fucking a lot of drugs and smoke a lot of weed and like not really get affected.
Were you doing more drugs than weed?
When I say drugs, I shouldn't even say drugs. I should just say fucking eating a bunch of mushrooms and acid, you know?
You're not doing any narcotics.
Well, I mean, acid, I mean, LSD, I think is, at this point, you could kind of classify it as a narcotic, but I mean, also other people will classify it as opening up your brain and figuring out some shit.
You're not doing those drugs that you need to do to get by. You're doing the ones to enhance your mental experience of everything.
Yeah, and at 15 years old, man, I mean, like, fuck, dude. I wish a lot of 15-year-old kids this day and age would eat a bunch of mushrooms and maybe, like, it would make them start thinking on a different tip or something, dude. I don't know. I feel like the younger generation is just, I don't know, like, you're looking at a younger generation, at least in skiing, when you get to a point where you're good, and no matter what, now you're going to have a coach.
Yeah.
Right away, it's just like if somebody's there every day and you're just getting pulled and drove into the mountain and this and that, and you're not having to figure out shit for yourself, and you're having some dude like tell you every time you ski, like, even if he's not even helping you, whether it's just like, yeah, good job, dude, like, right on, sweet. Just that type of shit. Like, back in the day, dude, we didn't even have a fucking cell phone and we didn't have a coach. So it's like, this day and age, it just is kind of a little bit funkier where I look at some young kids where I was like, damn, dude, you should eat a bunch of mushrooms, dude. And maybe your mind would just expand and you would figure out this nerdy thing you got going on is just not working.
So you get kicked out of school. It's all weed related. And what do your parents say to that? Because most parents get really pissed off when their kids get kicked out of school for weed, especially when weed's illegal and it's looked at as a drug. Do they get pissed?
Yeah, dude. My parents were real pissed.
What do they do?
Right away, they flew me up home, and yeah, it was just bad news. Like, I got picked up by the airport by both parents, but my mom didn't even come to the airport. My pops did. I was waiting for my bags, got my bags. He just didn't even say anything to me. Then I get in the car. Nobody said anything to me all the way till we got to like our driveway pretty much. And my mom just like, I've never seen this before, but she just like gave out a blood curdling scream and just turned around and just started throwing pretty much punches at me. She wasn't really connecting or anything, and it was just more of like, she just couldn't fucking believe it, dude. I'd never really been in trouble before, so like, for her and my dad, they were like, oh my God, dude, like, what just happened? You just got kicked out of school for smoking weed, bro. Like, what are you doing? But in my mind, I'm so on the tip of like, I learned switch rodeo 7s and was doing switch 9s on the water ramps, and I was like, Pops, I know Mom's not hearing it right now, but I got some shit. Like, I'm going to do good this year, Dad. You can't just move me back home. And like, I just did a shit ton of work and like, it'd just be a bummer to like move back home and start high school back home. But so I somehow convinced my pops, like he was like, all right, I'll give you 1 year. Let's see what happens. And I mean, right from the first contest, like X Games qualifier, I won that. And then went to a Huck Fest and I won that. And then I went to, I think US Open was right before X Games. I got third in slopestyle and I won the big air. And then X Games was the next week and I won that. Each contest that I was winning, I was just talking to my dad because I didn't even talk to my mom. After she screamed and like turned around, and, like I got out of the car, I didn't even really see her, you know, because like I bounced to Mammoth like not too long after that. And my mom was just over it, dude. She did not want anything to do with me. But through each contest that I won up until X Games, I would talk to my pops, and each time he was like, all right, dude, no way. And then like right when it came down to it, my pops at the US Open, he like called my mom up and he was like, you should head out to X Games. I think he's about to do something good. And so I remember I did my last jump in Mount Snow and I came to a stop and my mom like ran up through everybody and she was just right there in her long white coat and this like white furry like headband type thing. And she was like crying her eyes out and shit. And I was like, the first time I had seen her since I got kicked out of school. So like pretty much right there, my parents kind of knew, wow, like you had this all planned out in your head and you actually executed it perfectly. What can you say?
And then even your school, don't they reach back out to you and want to let you back into school after you win the X Games because they're stoked that Tanner Hall went there?
Yeah, and they wanted me to do like this little photo shoot for the brochure and whatnot. And I didn't even talk to them. Like they hit my mom up, and my mom just basically said, "You got to be out of your minds." That's as far as that went. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you moved to Mammoth, and I think that's where you hook up with Evan Rapps and C.R. Johnson. And what year are we at here?
2001.
That's when everything changes for you.
Well, I got kicked out of school in 2000, and then 2001 came around, and I actually like moved to Mammoth, and I lived with Eric Spreet. This kid was a good homie of mine, and he basically, I met him the first day when I got down there because my dad dropped me off, and like Strokes was there. Strokes got me a pass. But then my dad like kind of was still pissed off where he's like, all right, figure it out, G. Where I was like, oh shit. So I remember I just went up on the hill and I didn't really have a fucking place to stay, dude. I left my bags in the marketing office of Mammoth that day. And thank God I met this homie. His name was Eric Spreet, and he was just skiing in the park, and he extended out. He was like, yo, man, if you don't have a plan or anything, we're going back to my house and chilling later on. I was like, dude, I don't have a place to stay. He's like, fucking stay with me. And so I ended up posting at this kid's house with him and this kid Kellen and this kid Charlie. And it was pretty wicked, man. They took me in and like, yeah, it was just skiing every day and going home and smoking weed and playing video games and just waiting for the next day to happen and just repeating itself.
Do you ever feel like you didn't have a childhood based on skiing almost taking that from you?
Depends on what you think of childhood is. Like if like school dances and like all that type of shit and like camping trips and I don't know, that type of shit is your like childhood. Like, yeah, I didn't have so much of that, but fuck, dude, like skiing, that's all I wanted to do. And that's still all I really want to ever do. So my childhood was just growing up around the mountain, but I still had the same experiences, you know, as like any other little kid, I feel like.
So with sponsorship, it's 2001. Are you making a pretty decent amount of money? Because there is money in the ski industry at that time. It's not when people are getting cut by sponsors. It's when people are getting signed by them. How are you doing financially at that point?
Well, at that point, I mean, my sponsors, they were kind of stoked because the year before in 2000, I went to X Games and I got like 8th place or something or 7th. But over that whole year, I just was really all about it and got better. And the first year I won all the contests. I mean, I wasn't making a lot of money, but I had a solid set sponsors like with Oakley and Rosignol, basically with just Oakley and Rosignol. And I mean, when I won the X Games qualifier and the next weekend we go out to Snowbird and I won the Red Bull Huck Fest, that's when Red Bull signed me. And so through that first year, I didn't make a lot of money. I won way more contest money than I did through my retainers. But I mean, at the end of that year, everything changed.
Things change again in 2001 because that's the inception of Armada. And you are a part owner of Armada and you're like the athlete owner with a handful of other people. Is that scary leaving Rosignol because they brought you up and then you're pushing them aside to start this new thing and you're like a young kid who doesn't have the business savvy that you even have today? Is it tough leaving a sponsor like Rossi to go do that?
It wasn't for me back in the day. I mean, because fuck, dude, it was such an exciting thing. And like, I was really hyped on what the Forum team was doing in snowboarding. And it just kind of seemed like a cool thing that we could do in skiing. I mean, obviously not copy by any means, but it was just kind of the similar thing where you get a group of riders together and you form a company. And back in the day, to me, it was really appealing to be a part of. And the hardest thing just for leaving Rossi was my team manager. I mean, George Cooperswaite, that dude is like family still to me right now. I mean, that's like a family member I gained through this type of stuff, you know. George Cooperswaite is just one of the best human beings in the world. So like that was what made it tough, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like my excitement for being a part of something that like JF Poussin and Julian and fucking Boyd Easily and fucking dude, it was just insane. I was like, no way am I going to be able to ski with these guys. JP Auclair, like shit, dude. Like back in the day, JP to me he was it. You know what I mean? So it was really, really appealing to me to be able to be a part of that.
That company has blossomed. I guess we can talk about it a little bit here. Armada had a great run as an independent athlete-owned brand who was changing the game. You guys did that. Eventually you get bought by Atomic, or the group that owns Atomic and Salomon, and you're brought in-house there. And I would ask you what you thought about that, but then there's a huge offer on the table from a Chinese company. I think right now it's out there of like $5.5 billion for the Salomon and Atomic brands. And underneath that falls Armada. And what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. This whole Armada thing, how that shit all got kind of screwed up. It was a real big bummer. But at the end of the day, we pretty much had to sell just to keep the company going. I mean, if we didn't sell, dog, it would have gone under.
For sure.
Everything would have closed down. And it was tough to see a lot of kids just being like, oh, Armada's a sellout brand. You guys sold out to make the money. It's like, yo, guys, I'll tell you right now, to everybody that wrote a comment like that, I didn't make out with shit. That's a hard thing to swallow when years before we were getting offers to be bought out where, I mean, some of the offers, like, I could have been nice. That's the hardest thing to fucking come to grips with, where it almost came down to one dude's greed is why, like, this shit all kind of crumpled. And I'm not here to say names and I won't even go into it, but it's just like at the end of the day, the people on Hill putting in the work, blood, sweat, and tears type shit, all to get fucked up over a money thing. You know what I mean? It kind of sucks. Especially when I was thinking like this was going to be a fallback type thing.
But this whole Chinese thing is really what I'm thinking about. Because when you got bought by Salomon Atomic, you know what? You guys were going to go under. I'm glad a ski brand bought you because they're a ski brand and they get it. But when you get bought by a Chinese brand that doesn't get it, does it make you scared? Because I saw the video you guys put out about Armada recently. We Are Armada, I think it was. And everybody has so many great things to say about the brand because you guys have done so much shit over the years. And it's all been really game-changing. But then you look at this, and if this deal goes through and you're owned by a Chinese manufacturer, I have no problem with Chinese manufacturers. But it would be weird, I would think, to the authenticity, to everything with the brand. And would it change your view on anything, or it doesn't matter?
I mean, at this point, dude, like, I'm not even an owner or anything anymore. I have no shares. That shit is all done with me. So it's like, at this point, I just give Armada thanks for, you know, one of the first things they did was re-sign my contract because it was pretty much up when Armada sold. So, me just showing faith like that, it was a good thing, man. And I, like, the best people work here. And even the people at Hammer. At this point, every check shows up on time and shit. So, there's good things about it, too. It's just, for me, it's tough, man. Like, it was a family vibe, and it's still a family vibe. You know, we're just owned by somebody else now.
There's another layer. You have the family on one level, and then you've got the grandparents on top who own it all.
Exactly, man. And I don't even know if you can call them grandparents. It's just like you got child services above us or something.
And maybe you needed those back in 2001.
You know, at the end of the day, dude, like I said, Armada's still here. We're still making really great products. We still have a great team. Still have the best team working for us. So it's, you know, at the end of the day, we're still moving forward.
Moving forward in your career, it's the C Crew era. It's like you, CR, Pep, Evan. Who else is part of that crew?
It was like Ian and Neil Provo, even Nate Bozong and Mikey Peterson.
Let's talk about Boznutz for a second. So I had him on the podcast. He's just like a character. I mean, he wasn't Forum 8. He was the next generation of Forum. But he is and was such a talented rider. He got on a path of drugs and alcohol that maybe took him away from his true calling. But he's always had fun doing whatever he's doing, it seemed like, and hasn't really looked at drugs and alcohol as being that bad, although he acknowledges it's a problem. But you hang out with that dude a lot. Yeah, man. Bozong's fucking awesome, dude. Like, yeah, he's just a special person in the world, man. He's got a lot of creative sense to him, and he's a super motivated human being. He's always wanting to get out and do things, and it's good to surround yourself around like good energy like that. You know, I mean, obviously he's had some problems in his life, and yes, drugs and alcohol can come into anyone's life. Like, I mean, shit, they did mine. You know what I mean? But obviously not to that extent. And I think Bozong right now, like, he's been sober for a while now, for actually a really long time. And for the first time, like, he's saying a lot of things to me where he's like, fuck, I can't wait to get up to Montana and do some filming and hit some jumps and crank some doubles into POW and shit. And it's just like, just hearing those little things, I'm like, wow, dude, I think the brain's like starting to reconnect with like everything again, you know? And just seeing his motivation for like skydiving this summer. You guys are getting after it at skydiving. You went once and then you're trying to go as often as possible? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Bozong, he kind of got me on the tip, and I kind of had to break out and started traveling a little bit when they started doing their
AFF certification, but my plan is first thing right next summer is just to get that certification. And then, yeah, it's a really wicked thing, man. I mean, skydiving's a good way to let go of a lot of things and face your fears. And yeah, I mean, the last person I thought I'd be doing it with and getting me hyped on it was Nate Bozung, but I give him full prop for that because he's full of life right now. And hopefully he just stays on the path. Everybody has their own path. And the older you get, you realize like you have a choice on which way you can go down or make your path. You know what I mean? And I think he's realizing that. And I think being in the mountains and skateboarding and snowboarding and making clothes and doing all this shit makes him happy. You know what I mean? So it all comes down to when Bozung's going to be allowed to go out to the bars again and do all that stuff. It's just like that's the big question. But I think at that point, that's not even going to be a question.
Do you eventually see getting into base jumping as well? Because it seems like that's the progression, especially with the skiers I've met.
Bozung keeps talking about wingsuiting, dude. He wants to go like up to Chamonix and like jump off the Guidam D and like shred down the mountain faces in a wingsuit. And I think it's totally bananas, but at the end of the day, like you never know like where that shit will take you because it is pretty addicting. Catching a lot of airtime if you're an adrenaline junkie, it doesn't get really much gnarlier than that. So, I mean, I can't really say where that shit'll go, but I mean, as long as I'm around Bozung and we're skydiving, you never know where it's going to go because he just kind of flies by the seat of his pants.
Well, I'm going to jump back into your career, and I'll say it's 03 to 05, and you're just on fire contest-wise. No one can touch you. I probably have it in my notes how many X Games medals you won, but you won a shit ton. I think you won like 5 or 6.
7 of them, bro. Come on, pal.
I don't keep your X Games medals memorized in my brain, dude.
You shit, dog.
In terms of X Games and contests, how do you approach them? Because there's some people that get really stressed out before the contest. The Roy Silvas of the world will go smoke a joint before the contest and he'll be ready to go. What do you do before contests?
I mean, back in the day, it was like wake up, have some breakfast with the crew, me and CR and fucking Raps and E-Rock. And we'd pretty much be rolling in E-Rock's Escalade to the mountain to Aspen. And I don't know, dude, we were pumping music, smoking blunts, and fucking just getting in the mindset, dude. I don't know. Back in the day, it was wicked because it was something new every day. And I don't know, like, contest for me brought out the best of me, you know what I mean? Like, I would wake up those days full of life and just ready to go. I always dealt with nerves pretty well and stuff like that. So it was more of a vibe where I tried to get my skiing so on point. So when I got to the start gate, it was more or less just like smiling and having a party because I knew exactly what was going to happen with my skiing. And when you're at that level of confidence, like it's kind of hard to get shook, you know what I mean, in a contest setting.
So there were no nerves or anything? It was, hey, I'm ready to go and I know what I'm going to do?
I mean, I can't say there wasn't nerves. Like there's obviously always going to be nerves, but it was like I was so confident. Sometimes I was like looking at the starter and yelling at him to let me go, you know?
We've all seen that at different points on TV because you're an emotional dude. I think I said that in the beginning. And when you're happy, it comes out on TV. And when you're mad, it comes out on TV. One that I remember pretty clearly, I was in San Antonio, Texas. It's the Global X Games of 2004 or something like that. And it all comes down to Tanner Hall. One pipe run and the U.S. can win the Global X Games. I don't know what happened in your run, but you didn't nail it. I think you guys were up in Whistler. We were watching it in San Antonio at the stadium, and you lost it on TV. Do you ever look back at moments like that and get embarrassed when you see yourself in just that full Tanner mode?
No, dude, I just look back and laugh. That's just the ADD and everything. And I was really fucking pissed that day because it was like, that was such a weird day because I was all training for like 3 days straight of training and like training in the morning. I hit my run every time. Like I couldn't be fucked with. And then the 2 contest runs I had to do, I decked on both 9s at the bottom. It was the weirdest shit in my brain. I was so mad. And like, yeah, my fucking anger got the best of me like it does a lot of the time. But at this point, making serious lifestyle changes and kind of like figuring shit out, those moments are funny to look back on and just shake my head and be like, wow, right on.
It's refreshing to hear you can look back and laugh on those.
You can't look back and dwell. I mean, if you do that, you're not going to fucking be well.
Life for you at this point is getting pretty crazy. You're everywhere in skiing and everything's, I won't say it's been easy for you, but it hasn't been that hard. And then I feel like your first reality check happens when you get arrested in Vail. And what happens there?
Yeah, I got really hammered at a bar, and the bouncers of that bar did not like me, and I got cornered in the bathroom. The bar was closed, and my dumb ass, like I fucking ran back inside thinking I left my credit card behind the bar, so I ran back in to try to get my credit card, and then I had to take a piss, and I asked the bartender, "Can I use the restroom?" And then when I walked back there, like two bouncers came in there, and one of them choked me out, and like I think the other one was fucking hitting me in the back of the brain. And one of the Oakley team managers came in and saw that happening, and she was like, "Yo, I'm gonna press charges. Like, what's going on?" And at this point, I didn't know what the hell was going on, man. I was like really hammered, but then I was really pissed off too. And then when I got taken upstairs by the bouncers, the cops were there, and the bouncers threw me at the cops and was like, "Arrest this dude." And that's exactly what happened.
You might not realize how big you've gotten in the media based on you living your life, but then you get arrested and everybody starts talking about you for bad shit. Is that an eye-opener?
For sure, man. I mean, nobody wants to be in that situation, but I mean, at that point, like, I'm still pretty fucked up. I remember driving into Aspen that next week, and like we're listening to the local radio, and they're like, Tanner Hall, fresh off an arrest in Vail at the U.S. Open, is pulling into Aspen this week for his chance at another gold medal or some shit like that. And I was like, holy shit, huh? And I was looking at it back in the day, like use that shit as fuel. You know what I mean? Because like I sat in jail in Vail, and then I fucking got broken out at like 4 a.m. I think I slept for like an hour and then woke up. Strokes took me up to the mountain, and I ended up winning the pipe contest that day.
And are there any repercussions for the trouble, or no? Kind of goes away?
Well, no, because I got broke out of jail, and 4 hours later I won the pipe contest. So what are they going to say?
It's amazing how that works. We haven't really talked about your film parts, and we're really not going to because there's just too much out there. But I'll say 2004 is a different year. You put out Dub Ski. I feel like you have the future of skiing in that movie with you. You've got the Pettits, you've got Kai. And how do you find the young kids coming up? Just through traveling and skiing?
Yeah, for sure. And I met Kai a couple times previous before that, and the dude was just a boss from day one. You could see it in the skiing and just his attitude and everything. Like, the little man's just a boss. So it was just happened naturally to link up with him, you know, and Pettit as well. Those two kids are not normal.
I'm going to take one more sponsor break, and I'm going to start with Spy Optic. Spy has been around since 1994, so they have a long history supporting snow sports. And this year, they've produced the best goggle ever made, the Ace EC. That's a bold statement, but it's 3 lenses at the push of a button. I asked pro rider Eric Jackson if he had a chance to try the goggle.
Dude, I have. That goggle is a game changer. It's crazy. It's pretty insane not having to ever change a lens. You literally have one lens and it's go time for everything.
To get 20% off a pair of the game-changing Ace EC or any sunglasses or goggles, head on over to spyoptic.com, place your order, then use the code capital TPM, the number 20. That's all one word, and you will get that 20% when you check out. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery based out of Bend, Oregon. They are all about drinking beer outside and supporting snow sports and culture. They really put their money where their mouth is, and this year there's a bunch of projects that prove that. There's the Pray for Snow movie, which 10 Barrel is the only beer company to ever produce their own ski and snowboard movie. They're also working with Mike Bassich to build a Snowcat mini pub, and they'll have their Hella Big Air contest this year, March 9th at Copper Mountain, March 30th at Mount Bachelor, and there will be one more TBD location and date. So next time you're at the store, make sure you pick up some 10 Barrel and support the beer that supports you. You can find all about the Hella Big Air, the movie tour, athletes, and more over at 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors, and now we'll get back into the podcast. You're a celebrity in skiing at this point. Does it change you at all? Or are you still the same kid? Because you can look back now and be like, I was an asshole at this age. But what do you think looking back on yourself at 18 years old? What do you like?
Yeah, man. The love for skiing has just never changed. It just grows every year. And I think at that point, I was really starting to realize the opportunity all of us had that we could do with skiing. You know what I mean? Fuck, dude, at that point, it was really new. When the park movement came about and then the movies that were being made, it was just like so much inspiration every year. I don't know. I was just really hyped on the state of skiing at that point.
Are you an approachable kid to people at that point? Are you a cocky skier?
For sure, I'm cocky, but I mean, at that point, approachable too. I don't know, man. Like, when you're young like that, it's crazy. Especially coming from Montana, and then like you're thrown into this, you're making a lot of money all of a sudden, you're young. Not a lot of girls were ever looking at you, and then a lot of girls are looking at you. I mean, fuck, your brain can go bananas.
Not a lot of girls were looking at you, and that's the story of my whole life. But I never had any talent like you have. And when you start winning X Games medals and all these things happen, did it get easy for you? Because
I mean, it's not really hard to get girls at a contest in a contest setting, you know what I mean? If you wanted it, you could go out and get it.
that's got to be nice to know that's available.
Yeah, but fuck, dude. I mean, that shit will get you more in trouble than anything. Straight up, man. Being fucking dumb on one night, stupid shit like that. Whether it's getting diseases or getting a girl pregnant that you fucking met when you're hammered at like 1 a.m. and you take her home and fucking, like, you have no idea who this person is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just so much that can go wrong if you're not smart, you know what I mean? And in those settings, it's easy to not be smart.
Well, I'll say not a happy subject, but you probably knew we're going to talk about it. Doing a switch 9 over Chad's Gap, you break both your heels and ankles. And that whole thing has been beaten to death, I would say. You can go online. It was on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's kind of everywhere. So we don't have to talk about the injury. It's a tough one and really miserable to get out of the backcountry and get yourself back into one piece. But what are your thoughts about all the clowning and shit that goes on at your expense when people are using your injury as something that they're almost talking shit on and laughing at? Because that happened in some different places just because of your reaction, because you're in pain. What are your thoughts of that? Because it's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. The internet's funny though, man. Everybody gets like pretty fucking brave behind their like keyboard or their phone, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you can't really look at that. I could say that now. I mean, back in the day, yeah, I could probably look back at it and be like, fuck, a couple things hurt a little bit. But I mean, at the end of the day, it didn't hurt as much as breaking my fucking ankles or my heels. So I was just at that point really focused on trying to get them better, man, because that was scary as fuck, man. I didn't really ever get hurt like that before. So when that happened and that feeling happened and just getting the sled ride back to Alta Hospital and like getting the x-rays and they're like, holy shit, dude, you're going to need surgery. And hearing that, I'm like, fuck, dude, no way. Yeah, it was more of a shock than anything, you know what I mean? I wasn't saying like looking back, looking at everybody's comments was kind of like bumming me out or anything. I think the main thing was like I was just so focused on how I could get my feet better. At that point, bro, I wasn't even really looking at Facebook and MySpace and shit. And that's like Facebook, MySpace era, 2005.
How long does it take you to come back and feel comfortable on your skis again? Because like you said, you've never been through an injury like that. And having it on both legs, man, is just ridiculous.
Pretty much 10 months to the day that I broke my ankles, I won my first super pipe gold medal. So like, I think I was too young to realize like I was still healing at a rapid pace. When you're young, bro, and you get hurt, like the healing process, you don't even think about like little tweaks or anything because they don't really fucking happen.
Right.
The healing process went by fast. Yeah, it was like 10 months. And then I was back at X Games. And I'd say like right there, right when I won, I was like, all right, everything's back. I'm good to go. There's no problem.
For those 10 months, how miserable is it for you being an ADD kid who has no use of his legs, I would think, at that point? It's got to be hell for you.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. But at the end of the day, bro, my mom came down and held it down, my brother as well. And they helped me out a shit ton with that. It was just waiting. It was like the waiting game, man. I was just waiting to get back on my skis. So it's just a summer of recovery.
The next major thing that happens in your life, other than contests, but this is more major than a contest, is you're overseas and your best friend, C.R. Johnson, gets hurt. It looks like he's not going to make it. And based off the type of dude that you are and how loyal you are to your friends, you live in the hospital and you're there when he wakes up. You know he's going to be back. And I had a chance to meet CR before and after the accident. And I think a really awesome dude both times. But I feel like the injury changed him a little bit brain-wise and made him a better, nicer, more empathetic and compassionate dude. Did you see that?
100%, man. He like became enlightened after he hit his head.
Does his new outlook on life change how you're doing things?
I mean, every day I take inspiration from that kid. Before he passed away, I mean, he was really a genuine person to like everybody, his friends and his woman, his family, just true to his word, true to everything. And like, I think he woke up out of that coma with like, like I knew he did. He woke up with like a new sense of respect for himself and for the others around him and for his sport and for just life itself, you know. It was pretty crazy to see like the change that had happened, you know what I mean, in such a short time. And I think it was just that appreciation for life and like realizing how close it came to all ending. It's heavy, bro. I realize now how to live your life and like how to treat others and yourself and your surroundings. The first person that ever instilled that in me was CR, because he went from being some type of way to a totally different type of way, and it was like only positive, you know.
Not that he wasn't a good person before, but it was just like he had changed in such a positive way that made everybody else want to be positive. It was really cool.
Yeah, man, that's for sure.
Moving past here, which is hard to do, but the X Games come, you've already won 4 medals. The gold you win here is post-injury in the pipe. So is that the most satisfying one to you?
Yeah, that was a special one just because like CR, what was going on with him and myself as well, it was a special one for sure. And then I can't remember what year it was, but Pep got second and I got first. So I did a huge switch line off the bottom, and my grandpa had just passed away like in January, like right before the X Games or December. And that was a pretty special one too, because I was pretty tight with my grandpa and whatnot. So it felt good to almost like do it for him. You know what I mean?
Going into a contest where your grandfather passes, are you thinking about that in your head too? Like, I'm going to win this one for my grandpa, and then you do, and it's tears at the end?
I mean, it was just kind of extra motivation for me to do well. Like I said, man, contests came around back in the day and my mental was like on point, you know? So when stuff like that would happen, it was just more motivation, and it made me even hungrier to go get the job done.
Towards the end of your competitive career, it was the era where you had Rydell and Dory, but it seemed like it was always you pitted against the Dumonster, Simon Dumont, towards the end. And were you friends with him?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not close at all, but we were definitely cool, man. It wasn't like we hated each other or anything. At the end of the day, Simon's a wicked dude. He's very talented, super motivated. I mean, I wish he was still super motivated on skiing. It'd be sick to see his style still out there doing it, but to each their own, and I'm just stoked that he's stoked in life, you know?
Did you ever ski that Red Bull pipe with him? I can't remember, but he had that crazy pipe with gaps in it.
The cube pipe, dude, that would have been illmatic. I wish I got to do that, but at that point, I don't think my legs were feeling anywhere near good enough to ski.
Okay. I would hope that you've made some fun purchases. I've seen your Sprinter van. What other cool things do you have other than that and property?
Yeah, I don't know. I got that house in Nicaragua right on the beach. That's pretty fucking wicked.
Yep, that checks that box.
Yep. And I don't know, my snowmobiles, fuck, that's my favorite thing. And right now, not too much toys, bro. I'm trying to figure out my next move in life. You know, I lived out in Tahoe for like the last 5 years with a girl that I was dating, and that went south. I thought I was going to be there for a while, and I thought we were going to be together for a while. But when things go south, your brain kind of goes ham. So right now, I'm just at a point where I thought I wanted to be in Tahoe. I thought I wanted to be in Park City, but I'm finding out that I just feel like Montana is the best spot in the world. Like, it's just not bad up there.
Sometimes it's good to be home.
Yes, man, for sure. And, dude, the no sales tax up there and, like, the cheap properties and looking at a bunch of land up in, like, one of the best zones I've ever found ever in my life last year. So that was what I was saying earlier. It's like the shit we found last winter. It was like, it's shit that's going to keep me going for the next 10 years.
So I'm going to fast forward now to 2009. We're at a Stevens Pass shoot, I think with the late, great Chris Rudolph. And you hit a jump that maybe you shouldn't have, or you hit it with too much speed, or I don't know what happens. But you break both legs and tear both ACLs. And if I thought the first injury at Chad's was bad, I mean, this is right on par with that. I don't know if it's worse or not, but that's why I'm asking you.
Oh, it was 10 times worse, bro. I mean, bones are one thing. My ankles and heels healed up quick. Bro, when I landed, I couldn't feel my legs. I fucking thought I broke my back.
Ugh.
Like, that shit was so brutal, and it was so gnarly, and it was so lengthy. I remember, like, right after my first surgeries where they didn't even replace my ACLs, they didn't work on them. They just reset my tibia plateaus, and they microfractured, like, my anticular cartilage on the lateral part of my knee. And holy shit, dude. Right after that first surgery, my legs were so fucked where I remember the first time I had to like take a shit. It was the worst experience of my life. Like the first time I had to take a shit out of the first surgery that I had on the broken legs and torn ACLs, that's where it hit me. That's where I was like, this is gonna be fucked. Like I couldn't push. You never realize like when you're taking a shit, like you use your like leg muscles to push. And something as stupid as that, some as little thing like that, like something that you probably never even would notice, you know what I mean? And I had to sit on the toilet with my legs straight up on a chair that my dad had put there, and he put pillows on top of the chair so it'd be like soft on my legs. So I'm sitting there and like stretching my hamstrings that I had hamstring grafts, and I'm just sitting here like, holy shit, dude, this is going to be impossible. And then I started thinking like, fuck, dude, I got to wait like 3 months, and then they're going to do one ACL, and then I got to wait 6 weeks, and they're going to do the other ACL. So that's when the pain pill shit starts coming into play. You're like, fuck, dude, I'm fucked. I can't walk. I can't shit. I can't fucking do anything. So what better thing to do than just to sit back and start floating, I guess.
At first, you're using it for pain, but you read there's an opioid crisis out there. And when you use it for pain for an extended period of time, eventually you start using it to float. And how bad did it get for you?
Fuck, it got pretty bad, bro. It got bad enough to where like CR and a couple people noticed it and called me out on it and like was like denying it at first and just wasn't too stoked. But it wasn't hard to tell, dude. I was like mad skinny and just like looking like super pale and not healthy. I think at that point I was like 120 pounds, maybe even like 117 pounds or something, bro. It got real bad. But that's the thing, like you use it for pain, and then all of a sudden, like you figure out how easy it is to get those things, so you eat more than you need, and then you're never going to run out of them. And then all of a sudden, it's just like you want to stop taking them, and then you stop eating them, and then the pain sets in, and the withdrawals and shit is just like, when I got off those things, dude, my back hurt so fucking bad that I felt like I broke it.
Huh.
And it was just because I didn't have pain pills in my system.
How long does it take you to feel normal again? Is it like a solid month after you're done taking pills that you can feel like Tanner again?
Fuck, dude, it took a while, bro. It took a while. I'd say like almost up to 6 months.
You figure your shit out, and it's nice that you have a bunch of friends help you. The next trip for you, you're going to Jamaica. You're going to put together a music label. You have a lot of connections down there and a lot of connections in reggae throughout your career. But you're down in Jamaica, and then you find out that there's another accident and CR passes. And how do you even deal with that? Because it's like you experienced it twice.
Yeah, fuck, dude. I mean, the shit, yeah, I don't know. I'm still dealing with it, bro. It almost didn't even hit me back in the day because I almost didn't want to face what had happened, because it was crazy. That's like my brother. He's not like immediate family, but he might as well have been,
Yeah.
And it was just insane. Like that was where it all got really real. First time I was questioning, like, do I even want to ski? What do I want to do? Like I was even questioning, do I want to live? Crazy shit goes on in your mind when you're like fucked up. And it was crazy because like the one kid that helped me out, it was like to kind of realize and get my life back on a better path, just passed away. At least I was surrounded by a bunch of good people. It could have got a lot worse with how I dealt with it. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I wanted to stay strong for myself and his family and my family and everybody. Because when that shit happened, we were down in Jamaica and my cell phone just started flooding. Like every single person that had ever came in contact with me was hitting me up, just asking me like if I will be okay and just please don't do anything stupid and like hope you're going to be okay.
Anybody who knows you is close with you. If they didn't reach out, they should have, because the way that you've been seen reacting to things, whether it's on the internet, whether it's on television, you wear your emotions on your sleeve, and you can see that very well. So that's got to be the most difficult thing you've ever gone through. And a great way to figure out a lot of your life is through the edits and through the movies. Did you ever film with MSP?
Yeah, for sure.
There was a Yearbook?
Yeah, Yearbook and High Society and maybe one other one.
Who haven't you filmed with? Level One?
No, I filmed with Level One on like Berman's second movie ever, or his first movie. But yeah, I'd say Level One would be like pretty much the one where I did, because the only shit I had in Berman's movie was like up in Whistler on the summer glaciers. I don't know if that's a segment.
You film with everyone, and I think everybody should just search Tanner Hall online because you're going to find a lot of great things. The one that I think is the greatest, though, for me personally, you put something out in like 2015 called Triumph, and you're a dude who needs to prove nothing to no one in skiing. You have done so much, and it has changed the game. But you went on a trip, or a lot of trips, where you went to spots when you were 17 to 22-ish. You went back to those same spots and one-upped all the tricks there, just to be like, hey, fuck you, I'm better than I was. And I don't know if that was your thought process. Was it?
Kind of. I mean, at the end of it, when we were looking at all the footage, that was kind of a good way to put it together. At the time, I wasn't thinking that because it was just, we had so much fucking snow that year in California that we could do whatever we wanted again. And it hasn't been like that because of the drought that was there for a while. So, yeah, when the snow came back around that year, it was like, here we go. And it just so happened I was just feeling good. And that was the season that I got sober, and it all came together that year.
Another one came together this year. It dropped last week. Year after, Tanner put out, so you can see that free online, which showcases another year of sober skiing from Tanner, which means it's going to one-up the skiing that you've seen from him in the past.
And I got to clarify, when we say sober, I am smoking weed right now. So it's like I've been alcohol-free and chemical drug-free for fucking a very long time. So that's what it is. I just wanted to clarify, because some people will hear that and they'll be like, well, you still smoking weed. You can't say that word. No, it's just like, I understand that and I fully agree. So just wanted to clarify.
But I would say weed to you is like almost a vitamin at this point. It's not like it totally fucks you up.
Straight up, man. And it keeps everything in my life square. It almost makes me paranoid on, like, if I don't get the shit done, like my responsibilities in a day, it really makes me have to go get those done, which is an insane thing because a lot of people can smoke and say it like makes them lazy and not take care of shit.
But to some people, you can still get just as much, if not more done. And I know that very well.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I didn't bring up and I wanted to bring up was there was a period in your life where all your internet posts had capital letters to them. And I guess that means you're yelling, but what was the thought behind that?
No, that was just a style thing, man. When I met Cali P, the first time I saw him like writing on the internet and stuff, it was all in capital letters. And I just liked the style. It got your attention, you know. I always just scrolling through posts, and then when I'd get to Cali's, I'd always just smile and be like, well, fucking hey, he's doing a good job of making people fucking pay attention. And so it just kind of came off like that, you know what I mean? And that fucking kids just go bananas. And like, I would get messages from people being like, yo, you really need a better education and you need to learn grammar. Like, I can't believe you talking all capital. It's like, dog, I don't even know who you are. I'm typing on the internet to like say, watch this or listen to this. And if you have enough time in your day and that bugs you so much where you write to me and you're pissed off that I use capital letters, it's like, holy shit, dog. Like, those type of people probably voted for Donald Trump. It's like, that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to go into one final little topic before I go into inappropriate questions. The most exciting thing to read in the offseason for me, when I read Tanner Hall in the Freeride World Tour, I was like, holy shit, it's about time, because you ski crazy lines as it is, and that's what this event's about. It's just doing it in conditions that you might not normally do it in. I think I said to you, hey, we can do the interview today or after you win your first event, because I believe in your thoughts.
Well, that was awesome of you, and thank you for that. But I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling confident, and it's just good. Like, competing always gave me a good focus, you know what I mean, and a goal. And I think having a focus and a goal and something to chase after in life is a very needed thing to keep the mental stability up and keep having fun and keep the shit rolling. So I think no better time, and feeling really healthy mentally and physically. And, you know, I ain't getting any younger, so it's just going to be a fun time to travel to these spots and be able to hang out with a whole new group of people and meet a whole bunch of new people and just be able to send it and see what happens, man. I'm really excited. It's going to be a really fun thing, you know. I'm really interested to see how I approach this too, you know what I mean? I can't really say anything because I've never really done one of these contests before, so it's just going to be wicked, man. I know my abilities, I know what I can and can't do, and I'm ready to see what happens. That's for damn sure.
So at this point in the show, I am going to jump into a segment called Inappropriate Questions. This is how I end the show, and I get to find someone that you know, and I talk to them and ask them 3 inappropriate questions. I think you're very familiar with Eric Iberg. I should have brought him up in the conversation, but I didn't. So, Tanner, I'm going to give you the first question here from Eric Iberg.
Have you ever chewed your hand so deep that it's bled? And if so, how long did it bleed for before it healed? And did you continue to chew on it while it bled?
I'm guessing that's a habit of yours, is chewing your hand?
Yep, my fingernails, bro.
To the nub, to where they bleed?
I do it fucking relentlessly, man. But right now, I've been waiting to take this photo for mad long. I probably still have like 6 more months, but I'm not biting them. And for the first time in my life, I have fingernails, G, but they still look a little fucked up. So I gotta give them like at least 6 more months, maybe. But holy shit, like I have nails again. For like the last maybe 20 years, I never really had nails. I literally chewed them from the top, like near the cuticle, and then I would chomp down on the nail. It used to be bad. Iberg seen me do some gnarly shit to my fingernails.
All right. Well, we'll jump into question number 2.
My second question for you, Montana. Whatever happened with Red Bull? I heard you beat up the big guy.
I was going to ask it in the interview, but I figured we'd wait till he asked it in Inappropriate Questions. You were with Red Bull for a while. You were with Rockstar, I think, as well. What happened with Red Bull?
Holy shit, dude. I almost want to save that for Like a Lion too, because I can get into it. It's kind of gnarly.
If you want to save it, you can. If you want to tell it, that would be great too.
I'll say that I didn't beat up anybody. That's for damn sure. I got in somebody's face in New Zealand, and he got in my face, and the next day I was fired. It was some whack shit, man. It was some whack shit how that whole Red Bull thing played out. There was some really shady shit that happened there. I mean, fuck, dude, me and Iberg were at X Games one time and had one of the employees sit there and tell us how we're going to fail on making Like a Lion, because we were in the middle of making it, and it was at X Games, and just some employee was sitting there trying to tell us how we're going to fail and how I'm selling myself short. I'm like, bro, I don't fucking think you really know what you're talking about right now. So, like, we're going to be okay. And then we make Like a Lion, and it wins X Dance, and they had Jamie O'Brien's movie that was in there in the same category as us, and we beat them, and they put like 250 grand behind that movie or some shit like that. So it's just like, that felt real good, you know what I mean? To be able to put that back in their face like that.
After that, it's Rockstar, and that was really short-lived. What happened there?
I don't know, dude. Rockstar's just fucking kind of, I don't know. I don't even know if those dudes like even know what's going on at the company, but I did, whatever. I give them props because they did give me a bunch of support and like got to do some cool things. But at the end of the day, dude, like, I don't know what goes on. The industry's kind of gnarly and it can be ruthless. With Rockstar, it's like, whatever. I wasn't bummed and I was really stoked to get the years that I did with them. And it was nothing like Red Bull. Actually, Rockstar had some respect, so it was wicked.
Well, we will jump into our final inappropriate question.
I don't know if it's inappropriate, but what is your biggest thing that you've ever posted online, whether that's MySpace, Facebook, New Schoolers? What have you been the most embarrassed about, or which you would never have done?
Fuck, dude, I don't know.
Yeah, or have you said something on the internet, or maybe like the Powder Awards when you grabbed the mic and just went on a Tanner rant, which was amazing. I think you should do that every year. Because you're not afraid to speak your mind, and when you don't like what's going on in the industry, you're going to tell people. And while you don't usually make it comfortable, I think that's the weird part with you, is it's always uncomfortable how you say it, but you let people know how you feel, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, well, I think probably at IF3 one year in Montreal, I got super fucking drunk one of the first years. I jumped from like the fucking top balcony to like the lower balcony. Dude, it was such a bad scene, man. I could have got really, really, really hurt. It was just blackout. Like, I was fully blacked out. I woke up, my knee was all swollen. I was like, dude, what the fuck happened last night? And everybody was like, you are fucking insane. And yeah, that was kind of a bummer because that kind of like set off some knee problems and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sucks getting hurt drunk.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. There's been a bunch, Doug. But at the end of the day, I'd probably say like jumping off the balcony. I have 3 awards and just not a good look and just kind of hurt my knee that day. So that sucked.
Well, Tanner, I want to thank you for your time. You're like 35 years old now. And when I look at athletes your age, most of them lose a step. If it's an NFL guy, I don't want him on my team because he's old and he's not going to be as good as he used to be. But with you, it seems like a fine wine, like you've been getting better with age. Yeah, you've had a couple years of injury where you've had to get through them. But the skiing that you're putting out now is arguably better than the skiing you were putting out 10 years ago. And you can't say that for anyone, really. So It's been a treat to watch, and your persona outside of skiing has been a treat to watch as well. So I love that you wear all your emotions on your sleeve, and I thank you for everything you've done in skiing.
Fuck yeah, Mike. Pal, thank you, dude. And the Pal movement's awesome, dog. I'm stoked with what you got going, and thanks for having me, bro.
So that was episode 100 and time with the ski boss, Tanner Hall. When I look at my list of all-time great skiers, I mean, my number one is Candide, just based off of the style that he's had for so long and all the different things that he can do on skis. But my number two, and I've said this before on the podcast, is Tanner Hall. I don't think there's a skier out there that can do as many different things as Tanner's been able to do at such a high level as Tanner's been able to do them. And it's been amazing to see over the past 20 years, because he's been at that level for, yes, 20 years. And now it's going to be exciting to see him join the Freeride World Tour and see what the next chapter of his skiing looks like. There'll always be video parts as well. But Tanner sounds healthy, confident, and ready to go, and his season should be full of fire, both in his lungs and in his video parts and competitions. And that was Tanner. Now I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It's been 100 episodes, and I wouldn't be here without all the people tuning in every week. So thank you very much. If you have anything to share with me, please reach out to me. My email is mike@thepowellmovement.com, and I will get back to you. I also want to thank my amazing sponsors who really do make the show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, Spy Optic, and Outdoor Research. Have a great week, everyone.